Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nell Merlino, and I am the chair of the Personal Data Independence Trust at Personal Black Box, and I'm delighted to be here for our next panel entitled, "The Only Thing More Rare Than a Woman Senator is a Woman CEO. What can women in politics learn from the private sector and vice versa?" So, I want to introduce the panel, and then I'm going to ask a set of questions. They're going to be the same questions to almost everybody with a different twist, whether you're in the public sector or the private sector. And I'm going to start right here to my right, Senator Kelly Ayotte. Good morning. Kat Cole, the president of Cinnabon. Senator Amy Klobuchar. Ellen Levine, from the editorial director of Hearst magazines, and Holly Rush, the president of Luxottica in North America. Thank you all for coming very much. Now, what I want to ask, just very quickly in the audience, is how many of you aspire to be leaders? Let's go, hands up high if you're going to be a leader, come on. All right, so most of you would like to end up here, yeah? Okay, so in that context, I really want you to listen to what everybody's saying, because they all did the things that you need to do to be the leader in your own life and the leader in your business. And I think one of the first and most important things is courage. You got to have courage. We think it's about compliance, it's really about courage. So the first question, I'll just start and we'll go from Holly all the way through. Tell me something that you did that everybody told you not to do. Really? Everybody told you not to do, and you went ahead and did it anyway, and you are very glad that you did.
So I love that she's lobbing the first softball question at me. Thank you for that, Nell. I think we were talking about this a little bit in the green room, and for me, it's a recent part of my story. I think I took a more traditional path to where I am today, and it took me almost 40 plus years to arrive where I am today. But it was about 5 years ago when I realized I needed to make a very distinct change in what I was doing to find personal fulfillment, but also to reach a new level of success. So I had to take a risk to leave the company that I had been at very successfully for almost 10 years and move into a very sort of foreign culture, if you will, a very male-dominated, European-centric organization where people from the outside hadn't really succeeded before. And there were a lot of people telling me that, there hadn't been anyone successful in this role before. Why would you do this to yourself? And I just knew on a lot of levels instinctively that it was the right move for me. And fast forward 3 years, and this year I took over as president for the wholesale division, our largest subsidiary, and the first woman globally in Luxottica to run a business. So very excited.
Awesome.
I did.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, Ellen?
Well, the first thing I was told not to do, after being a kid when I was told not to do anything, was I was working at a newspaper in Bergen County, which I loved, and I was married very young, and I was having a baby. And the men who ran the magazine, at that point there were about 100 reporters there and 2 female in the 100 group. And I was pregnant and showing, as we say. And they said, "Okay, it's time to go home now." I said, "Why?" "Because we don't want women walking around here when they're pregnant." And I said, "I love reporting. I'm going to continue reporting, and I'm going to come back when I'm done." And they said, "No, you're not." And I said, "Okay, I promise you I will not have the baby on the floor of the newsroom." And the guys calmed down, so I had told them from the very beginning I was a worker, and I was just going to work. And that's what made me happy. As it turns out, when I look back on it, my father, I think, he had 2 daughters. I was the firstborn, so I was his first son. And working was what I had to do, and when anybody told me I couldn't do it, I just went ahead and did it. I wanted to work. I wanted to be busy, but most of all, I wanted to know the truth. And the truth was the goal of being a journalist.
Excellent. Senator?
Well, since this is a private sector, public sector panel, I'm going to focus on something I did in the private sector. For 14 years, I was at law firms, and I had just made partner at the biggest firm in the Twin Cities. I got married, I went on my honeymoon, and the day I got back, I got called into the managing partner's office, and he said, "We didn't want to tell you this before you went on your honeymoon, but we're going to terminate your biggest client, MCI, because they thought I'll make more money from another company." And so I went home and I called the client and I told them what had happened, and they said, we'll go with you wherever you go. My firm made me a great offer, though, to stay there for 3 years and bill half my time. And it was a really hard decision because it was the biggest firm and it was a really solid firm. And I had a lot of friends there. And I decided to go out into the marketplace because I thought I cannot keep walking around there like the Walking Dead without my clients that I had built up for so long. And I ended up going to a mid-sized firm with my clients, and it was a pretty Republican firm. The former chair of the Republican Party actually was the main guy at the firm. And a lot of my friends said, I don't know why you're doing this. And I said, they want me to build the practice there, and they're also open for me running for office. So I brought the client over there, and in 2 years, it was the third biggest client at the firm because the Telecom Act had passed. I got a Coach briefcase from my other firm. I kept good relationships with the people in that firm. They ended up being my biggest donors to my campaign, the first firm. And I ended up building a practice. And when I ran for the local DA in a county that was kind of divided, the fact that I had the support from the former chair of the Republican Party made all the difference when I won by less than 9 votes per precinct. There's my story.
Wow, this is like a chapter for the good wife. It's an excellent, excellent story. Okay, Kat.
So I started out in my previous company as a waitress when I was 17 years old and moved up very quickly, and I became a vice president by the age of 26 in a company that had just reached 800 million in revenue. And so I was a very young executive. And the advice that I received was, you know what, you've made it. You've got a seat at the table, so just be good and don't make waves. And I remember hearing that thinking, have I really made it? Is this it? I mean, everyone from the outside said, like, you're so young, you're in such a cool gig, and wow, everyone would love to be where you are. This is the top. And I remember thinking, is this really the top? And so I sat in my first board meeting as a vice president of this large and growing company. And there was a program being discussed, and I vehemently disagreed with the program. And I remember hearing that voice in my head of another fellow executive who said, don't screw this up, just be quiet, be good, listen and learn. And I listened throughout the meeting, and I thought what they were discussing was such a bad idea for the company and the employees. And I made the mistake of following their advice. I stayed quiet. I didn't say anything. The program went forward and caused major problems in the business. The next board meeting, I spoke up, and I realized that you should never confuse having a seat at the table with having a voice. And I had silenced myself and not had a voice. And so anytime I hear someone say, you've made it, or what's next, or don't screw this up, I think that is the exact time that I should be speaking up and representing my point of view, because these people did not bring me to the table to just sit there and hold down a chair. They brought me to the table to help elevate the business. So don't confuse having a seat at the table with having a voice. And I was told not to have one, made the mistake of following that direction, and learned very quickly that it's important that I stand up, speak up, and show up for whatever position I'm given.
Awesome. Senator?
Well, I would say I started out my legal career at a law firm and was working on private cases and doing quite well there. And I realized this isn't what I wanted to do. I didn't have the passion for it. And I had an opportunity to apply for the Attorney General's office to become a prosecutor. And the partners that I had worked with at this law firm and those who I had looked to who were excellent lawyers, I went to them to tell them about what I was thinking of doing, and they basically, the response I got was, well, why would you do that? I mean, you're going to make less money. You're going to really set yourself back in this legal career that you're really on a strong path on, and you could do really well. And so I realized that you have to follow your passion. And that set on the course for me a life of public service, and that's what motivates me. Eventually, I became the first woman attorney general in our state and then went on to run for the U.S. Senate. But following what really motivates you, no matter what anyone tells you, and no matter if it's a pay cut or it's hard, you've got to move, things you have to do to make it happen. And there's going to be lots of naysayers that really don't want you to go on this path because it's not going to be easy. And so sometimes pursuing what you really want to do just requires saying, I know that's what you think and I respect you, but this is what I need to do.
Okay, so let's that all excellent. I think extremely helpful experiences that you've had. The next thing that I think would be very helpful for all of us to appreciate is in your current positions, whether it's in the private sector or the public sector, what would you tell the other? What would you tell someone in the private sector? What is a strategy that you used to get where you are that would translate from the public sector into the private sector? What did you do, Senator?
Well, first of all, I think what do? Do your homework. I mean, you have to know the topics that you are addressing with, I think, better than other people. And I also think thinking about things that would translate to the private sector is leadership is about building relationships too and motivating other people around you. And I think that applies in the public sector and would translate in the private sector as well.
Okay. I'd say to have that entrepreneurial mindset of believing in what's possible. There have been so many times in businesses, for-profit and nonprofit, that we were able to make a change or grow a division or reach a client or launch a product because we just had this insane blind belief in what was possible. And we weren't grounded by too much institutional weight of what has happened in the past or the way things had worked with historical view.
You've had an extraordinary career for a very young person.
I remember when I took over Cinnabon, and I have 250 business partners. They're franchise owners across 58 countries and 1,200 locations. And I came on board. The business had been tanking, not like slightly going downhill. I mean, like tanking. And it was because of the recession, and then people have no discretionary income. They're not shopping, they're not traveling. If they're not shopping or traveling, they're not in the venues where we do business, so there are no humans to sell to. And so things weren't great.
It's a problem.
Yeah, a little bit of a problem. And I came on board, and there were so many franchisees that said, look, Kat, we're just a cinnamon roll company. We make great cinnamon rolls. And I literally went to a board and drew a line that started at the top and had a pretty severe slope down and said, if that's all we are, this is where it's taken us, and this is where we're going to end up. And you've got your life savings, your children's futures invested in this business. And they were fighting launching things like smaller products because they were afraid of trade down. Why would I sell you something for $2.50 when I'm able to get you to buy something for $3.50? And the answer is because the public wants something different. And while what we are going to offer might be slightly less than what you offer today, so take a little bit of a hit on the sales side, you're actually able to tap into a consumer base that is a total veto vote for you right now. And so the ability to see the opportunity, not have such allegiance to the way things have been done, and think that that is the only way going forward. And we've had 4 of the best years in comp sales we've had in a decade, highest growth in the snack sector, and double-digit increases by every metric in the business for 4 years.
Excellent. That's, I think, excellent advice for any time you're trying to make a change and provide leadership. It's a very, very helpful example. Senator?
Well, I go back to when I actually have talked about this to private sector companies when they're merging and things like this. And back in Minnesota, they had me go and talk about what it was like to come in to the county attorney's office. I had 400 employees. Everyone was civil service, and most of them in AFSCME. They were really quite amazing lawyers. But try to imagine managing hundreds of lawyers that can be fearless in the face of supervision to begin with a lot of sets of bureaucratic rules. And so the whole thing that I had to go up against was trying to make changes in a very positive way so we could start having the office be more accountable to the public with numbers and showing what we do and try to do some reform in the courthouse. And the example I always used was when I actually, after a month there, I tried to move the furniture around in the lobby because the chairs were so far away from the phones, and we had our customers come in, which sometimes were like criminal defendants, but they were our customers. And so we would have, it was ridiculous. So I came in on President's Day and moved them around with my deputy. And the next day I came back, there'd been no janitorial staff there, and they were all moved back. And the receptionist, I said, what happened? This was such a nice arrangement. She goes, well, the lawyer said it was dangerous. I go, what do you mean it's dangerous? They said, well, people will trip over it. So I moved everything back again, and within 2 hours, she came with a list of categories of what people had said without their names, that she had thought this was so funny. In 2 hours, 3 people said they liked it, 25 people said that it was really bad, and 15 people said it was dangerous. And I always like to point out that 8 years later, we had no lawsuits, no one fell, it was much better. But that idea of trying to move a bureaucracy, government understands that as much as the private sector. But if I look at most of the stuff I've actually learned from the private sector, doing numbers, bringing in accountability into government. But this is one thing where I think government, good managers in government can really tell the private sector what this is like to try to make change if you can get it done, whether you're a governor, whether you're attorney general, whether you're a local mayor, whether you're a U.S. senator.
Awesome.
Okay, so what I'm hearing here, and I would definitely agree, is change is good, whether or not it's learning how to talk up in a board meeting or moving the furniture around. But my particular experience has been that going through corporations, and I'm at a private, not public corporations, you really have to have a certain amount of curiosity. If you just stay in your one arena, you unfortunately don't know about what else is happening around you. Asking questions, to me, is one of the best things you can do. You probably, if you're talking to some high-ranking people in your business or somebody who's higher than you, it's probably a good idea not to criticize their answer right away. But if you ask questions about what is going on in a division that isn't yours, if you're willing to take risk to push up new ideas, that's going to help you learn how to be a better whatever it is that you are. And early on, I'm just going to tell this because you're not going to believe it, and I think it's going to be interesting to you. When I started back at the newspapers before I went into magazines, when you were hired, and as I said, there were very few females, you got a medical exam by an outside physician. And when I got back in, I realized that I had, the two women had had blood tests, the men had not had blood tests. I know this is going to sound wacky, so I started to, the interest of a journalist, and I started to say, so why do women have blood tests? Well, we found out later, and this is so many lawyers here, I could have used you back then. We found out that we were being screened for syphilis, and the men were not. I mean, this is my favorite story. I am sharing it. Yes. And I was like, why? I was very young. I was 20 years old, out of school, and they said, well, the guys, they want to know, if you're okay. So we weren't doing lawsuits at that time, but it is, and it wasn't the 1940s, I can tell you that. It's more recent than I would like to confess. And I went to the boss, and I said, why are you doing this? And we had a little head banging. They stopped, but it wasn't with the threat. So my question is, or my advice is to you, be comfortable asking questions about whatever it is that is around you, not in a way that is going to make people cranky, but in a way that can give you information that is valuable to you. If you're on a business board, and I am on one, it's not unusual to be the only woman on a business board, but feel comfortable asking what it is that you want to know. And I'm a believer in taking smart risk. Be comfortable going up and talking to your bosses or people in parallel businesses and suggest to them, gee, you have an idea. I think the one thing that so many of us in this room have is a great business sense simply because we're female. So many of the businesses we work for, the end game is a female consumer. So at Hearst, we have 21 magazines, the large majority which are female. Until I became the editor of Good Housekeeping, there had never been a female running Good Housekeeping. And just be comfortable. I know it sounds funny, but it really wasn't. And from a point of view, companies need you as leaders if the end game is female, for sure, because they kind of missed the point for a long time. And now, in any industry that you're in, ask the questions, take the risk, calculated risk, and feel, and the other thing has helped me, so I'm going to pass it along, kind of have a sense of humor about the questions and the answers, because then you don't, it's not as though you're antagonistic.
Here, here. Holly, go ahead.
I think
That
I
was
want to
great.
switch seats with someone on the panel because I can't follow this
Yes,
every
you can.
time.
Yes, you
A story
can.
on
Yes, you
STDs, I don't know. It doesn't get any better than
How'd
that.
you get to be head of North America for Luxottica? What did you do? What did you do? What would you tell everybody else to do?
A couple things I think that I would suggest. And one thing that hasn't emerged yet is just how you surround yourself with great people
Yes.
and great advisors. And I think women instinctively do this. I think we're networkers, we're collaborators, we appreciate ecosystems. It's where we thrive. But I also think we fight every day, and I'm sure a lot of people feel this way, with this sort of perfect girl syndrome, that we have to be amazing at everything it is we do. And we take on all of the responsibility and the weight of that, whether it's personally or professionally. And I think once you let that go and you realize that good is good enough a lot of times, and you surround yourself with people who support you at being better, that contribute to your success, that believe in you, I think that's when your possibilities really open up, because you build confidence in what you're capable of contributing, and you draw that strength from other people around you. So for me, when I look back at almost 25 years of a career, I can say that starting very, very early on in my early 20s, it was about one mentor, one advocate, one sponsor after the next. And I wasn't deliberate about it. I was really fortunate that that happened for me. But it would be, I think, the best advice that I could give women in this room is, if you don't have your own personal network of advocates, look for them today. Don't wait for someone to sign up for that role. You do the self-selection on who you want to be in your inner circle that can support your growth and development.
The only thing I'd say is, at one point you said it wasn't deliberate, and I would challenge you. I would say that you had a hand in those people coming into your life. I think we often say that things happen to us because of luck or whatever. Some of that is true. A lot of it is decisions that you make. And you made some obviously excellent decisions to be where you are and surrounded yourself with great people. So I just wouldn't minimize the role that you played in it.
I agree, but I also think that sometimes it is about timing and opportunity,
Absolutely.
right? And
Absolutely.
I can honestly say, I think the first 10 years of my career, I was working in an environment that was all about people.
Yes.
And all about professional development and investing in you. And so as a consequence of that, I was the reciprocator, if you will. So I learned how to do that, and I took a lot from that experience. And I think as a consequence of that now, 25 years later, I believe so strongly in the power of many and not of one.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Do I have time for one more quick lightning round with people? One more. Okay, like 2 or 3 words. From each of you. Can you do it? Come on, we can do it. 2 or 3, just 2 or 3. You're sitting here with an audience full of women who want to be leaders. What is one thing you would say to them? One, literally one. One thing, one word, one that would help them move forward. Senator.
I would say what you started with, courage.
Courage, okay.
Don't be afraid, do it.
I'd say, don't forget where you came from, but don't you dare let it ever solely define you.
Here.
I would say have a thick skin and be fearless, and when someone's saying horrible things or talking behind your back, you cannot focus on that. And we certainly know that from politics, like from the Twitter feed. And that you have to go beyond the Twitter feed and find strength.
You might not want to read your own Twitter
Right.
feed. Just go forward.
You have to find but you have to find strength in the good things you're doing, and I think that's what you see with these women up here.
Ellen, one word.
Okay.
2 words.
2 words?
1, 2.
Have fun.
Here.
Every time. and I would just say,
Wear black.
yes, we're black, exactly.
It hides the coffee spills.
Easy to dress in the morning. We keep it simple. I think be passionate. Passion is contagious, and I think when you're passionate about something, it's easy to get people to follow you. And I think that's a lot of what you see up here on the stage, and I think that's the ticket to success.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much. This was fabulous. Yes? You all know how to be leaders now? Yes? Awesome.